afternoon. Thank you so much for coming this very chilly Saturday afternoon. We're going to ask everybody who's outside to please come on inside and find a seat. All right. Once again, good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming to honor Sejun Kim, the father of Assemblyman Ron Kim. 안녕하십니까? 론 킴 주하원 아버지 장례식에 오주셔서 대단히 감사합니다. 특히 추운 날에. That's about the extent of my Korean, so I will flip it back to English for now. I know we've been joined by a number of distinguished guests, and we will be hearing from them later on in the program. My name is Sharon Lee. I have the honor of helping to facilitate today's service and program. But first we will welcome Reverend James Park to open with a short prayer. 박태규 목사님.
Okay, let's pray. I pray that the comfort of the Lord will be upon Ron Kim's family. 전능하신 하나님, 이렇게 우리가 사람으로 살면서 어떻게 보면 가장 아쉽고 슬픈 이러한 고 김서준님의 장례를 지금 시작합니다. 먼저 하나님께서 사랑하는 가족들을 위로해 주시고 또 그 형제들 또 고 김서준님의 자녀들 그리고 손자 손녀 우리 하나님의 위로가 넘치기를 간절히 바라고 원합니다. 요한복음 14장 1절에서 6절에 보니까 너희는 마음에 근심하지 말라. 하나님을 믿으니 또 나를 믿으라. 내 아버지 집에 거할 곳이 많도다. 그렇지 않으면 너희에게 일렀으리라. 내가 너희를 위하여 거처를 예비하러 가노니 가서 너희를 위하여 거처를 예비하면 내가 다시 와서 너희를 내게로 영접하여 나 있는 곳에 너희도 있게 하리라. 내가 어디로 가든지 그 길을 너희가 아느니라. 도마가 가로되 주여 어디로 가시는지 우리는 알지 못하거늘 그 길을 어찌 알겠사옵나이까. 예수께서 이르시되 내가 곧 길이요 진리요 생명이니 나로 말미암지 않고는 아버지께로 올 자가 없느니라. 그러므로 우리가 낙심하지 아니하노니 우리의 겉사람은 낡아지나 우리의 속사람은 날로 새로워지는도다. 우리가 잠시 받는 환난에 경한 것이 지극히 크고 영원한 영광 중에 중한 것을 우리에게 이루게 함이니 우리가 주목하는 것은 보이지 아니하는 것이요 보이지 아니하는 것이니 보이는 것은 잠깐이요 보이지 않는 것은 영원함이니라. 만일 땅에 있는 우리의 장막집이 무너지면 하나님께서 지으신 집 곧 손으로 지은 것이 아니요 하늘에 있는 영원한 집이 우리에게 있는 줄 아느니라. 내가 들으니 하늘에서 음성이 나서 이르되 기록하라. 지금 이후로 주 안에 죽은 자들은 복이 있도다 하시매 성령이 이르시되 그러하다. 그들이 수고를 그치고 쉬리니 이는 그들의 행한 일이 따름이니라 하시더라. 그렇습니다. 이제 세상에서는 슬프지만은 고인은 하나님의 나라에서 주님 품에서 편히 쉬는 그런 시간인 것을 저희들은 믿습니다. 그래서 위로받기를 원합니다. 오늘 예식을 주님이 주장해 주시고 모든 순서 위에 하나님의 위로가 온 가족과 또 장례에 참석하신 많은 분들의 마음속에 주님의 은혜가 넘쳐서 위로가 되는 복되고 귀한 시간 되도록 하나님께서 복을 나려 주시옵소서. 예식을 주님 손에 의탁하옵고 예수님 이름으로 기도드리옵나이다. 아멘.
Thank you, Reverend Park. If you haven't already, a friendly reminder to please silence your phones. We don't want to hear any katok sounds throughout the service. Thank you very much. Up next, we will start with some message of comfort from another Reverend, Reverend Sungwon Park, Pak Sungwon 목사님.
우리 한인 사회뿐만 아니고 우리 뉴욕과 미주 주류 사회에도 자랑스러운 분이 계십니다. 롱킴 뉴욕주 하원 의원님이십니다. 또 그분의 아버님 되시는 고 김서준 또 선생님, 또 이렇게 장례에 또 하나님의 말씀을 이렇게 잠깐 전할 수 있게 된 거 영광으로 생각합니다. 롱킴 하원 의원님은 참 우리 한인 사회뿐만 아니고 가장 밑바닥에 있는 사람들에게도 따뜻한 마음을 가지고 또 예수의 사랑으로 또 우리 더나노머스에 접근하신 분이십니다. 그래서 아주 귀하시고 아주 소중한 분이십니다. 제가 어저께 요즘 강제 퇴보당하는 분들이 많이 계신데 노숙자들, 중독자들, 정신장애우들을 이제 섬기면서 한 분이 이렇게 얘기합니다. 저는 알코올 중독자가 되었습니다. 1년에 4사람이 내 가족이 죽음을 당한 장례를 치렀습니다. 자기 아들이 죽었고 그해 자기 와이프가 자살을 하게 되었고 자기 형이 죽었고 자기 어머니가 죽었습니다. 그런데 내가 미치지 않을 수가 없습니다. 그래서 알코올 중독자가 되었습니다. 그래서 홈레스가 돼가지고 이제 더나노마우스 한인들이 있는 홈레스로 들어오겠다고 인터뷰를 마쳤습니다. 우리가 살면서 하나님께서 이렇게 말씀합니다. 우리 연수가 70이요 강건하면 80이라도 그 연수의 자랑은 수고와 슬픔뿐이요 신속히 가니 우리가 날아가나이다. 고 김서준 어르신께서는 이제 성경이 말씀하는 강건하면 80이다. 이제 80고개를 앞두고 하나님의 부름을 받으셨습니다. 우리 인간에게는 각자의 모든 소중한 삶을 살고 있습니다. 그리고 모두가 다 존귀한 분들입니다. 이미 고인께서는 우리 대한민국을 위해서 귀신 잡는 해병이라는 그런 혹독한 훈련을 받으시고 그리고 베트남 참전도 하셨고 정말 국가를 위해서 우리 조국을 위해서 교회에 쓰임받은 아주 소중한 분이신 것을 제가 잠깐 듣게 되었습니다. 여기 계신 모든 분들 정말 소중한 분들입니다. 주님께서는 이 모든 소중한 분들을 그냥 말로만 하는 것이 아니고 실제적으로 자기 몸을 버리시면서까지 인간의 모든 죄값을 지불하시고 십자가에 죽으셨습니다. 그래서 이 오늘 봉독해드린 이 말씀은 우리 연수가 언제인 줄 알면 사람은 겸손해집니다. 우리에게 주어진 모든 시간은 어느 정도 한계가 있습니다. 그래서 오늘 성경에서는 우리에게 언제 내가 마지막이 될지 그 끝자락이 언제인지를 알 수 있도록 지혜의 마음을 허락해달라고 기도하는 시입니다. 우리 인생이 이 세상에 누구든지 태어나가지고 어떤 아픔을 볼지 어떤 슬픔을 만날지 누구도 모릅니다. 그러나 때는 정해져 있습니다. 하나님이 주신 생명은 120세입니다. 모세는 120세에 이제 철이 들어서 그는 겸손하게 자신의 때가 언제인 것을 알게 해달라고 기도합니다. 이 때가 어느 때인지 알게 되면 내가 무엇을 어떻게 하면서 살아야 될 것인지를 알게 됩니다. 이미 롱킨 위원님께서는 이미 젊으실 때부터 우리 이웃을 위해서, 우리 조국을 위해서, 우리 대한민국의 우리 한인들이 살고 있는 또 이 지역에 참 이웃을 사랑하는, 그런 내 이웃을 내 몸같이 사랑하는 그 실천을 몸소 보이시면서 현재도 귀한직을 감당하고 계십니다. 우리 모두도 우리 한인분들이 모두 행복하기를 원합니다. 또 우리 주님도 그렇게 되기를 원하십니다. 행복은 그냥 오는 것이 아니고 남을 위해서 희생하고 봉사하게 될 때에, 이웃의 행복을 빌어주게 될 때에 내가 행복한 것이고 또 우리 한인 사회가 행복한 것으로 저는 그렇게 생각합니다. 그래서 저도 이렇게 그렇게 조금이라도 이렇게 이웃이 행복한 모습을 보게 되면 길거리에서 사는 사람들 데려다가 함께 살자. 그래서 그런 모습을 보면 행복합니다. 따뜻한 곳에 있어서 너무 좋아요. 우리 롱킨 위원님께서 또 이 귀한 사역이 앞으로 지속적으로 되어져서 또 연방 또 이렇게 여기까지 참 우리 조국을 위해서, 우리 한인들을 위해서, 또 미국을 위해서 쓰임받는 그런 일들이 계속 이어졌으면 좋겠습니다. 주님께서는 내가 그 길이요 진리요 생명이니 나로 말미암지 고서는 아버지께로 올 자가 없습니다. 영접하는 자, 그 이름을 믿는 자에게 하나님의 자녀가 됩니다. 우리 예수님께서도 우리 모두에게 행복을 주시는데 이 땅에서의 행복뿐만 아니고 우리의 생명 끝나고 나서 저 세상에서도, 물론 우리 고인께서는 또 신부님께서 또 이렇게 함께하는 자리도 많이 하셨고 또 그런 자리를 통해서 우리가 어느 때인지는 알지 못하지만 또 고인이 또 주님을 이렇게 영접하고 간 것 같이 우리 모두가 다 행복한 여정이 되어지시고 또 행복한 우리 인생의 마무리가 되어지기를 진심으로 소망하면서 우리 유족들에게 또 위로가 되고 또 용기가 되고 또 희망과 소망이 넘치는 하나님의 귀한 행복이 계속 이어지기를 주님의 이름으로 부탁합니다.
Thank you, Reverend Park, for those words of comfort. One more reminder to folks to please silence your phones if you haven't already. Thank you very much. I mentioned that we have some distinguished guests today joining us. We will hear from some of them, but I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize some folks here. We are joined by New York State Senator John Liu, Congresswoman Grace Meng, Queensborough President Donovan Richards, New York State Assemblyman Ed Braunstein, New York City Council members Julie Wan and Sandra Ng, also Justice Karen Lin of the Queen's Supreme Court, Judge Wendy Lee of the Queen's Civil Court, and also I see Hugh Mo, a trailblazer in his own right, and many, many more. Again, you will hear from some of them later today. Shortly, we will keep with the program with to hear from family members and from Ron. But before we do that, I just wanted to share some thoughts about Sejun Kim, Kim Sejun-nim. He was born July 2nd, 1945. This was 7 weeks before Korea's independence from being colonized by Japan. So he was born in Korea under Japanese rule. And so he was a child during the Korean War. And as he grew up, he served his country, the Republic of Korea, in the Marine Corps, in the Vietnam War, that found foundation of service runs very deep in this family. And he built a life in Korea, a successful life, a career as an electrical engineer. But in 1987, he left that behind, and he took his wife, Mrs. Honey Kim, and his son, Ron Kim, to pursue a better life in the United States of America, and specifically here in New York. It's a common story. It's the Korean American story. It's the Asian American story. It is the immigrant story. And of course, the Kims, in classic Korean American story, they opened a grocery store, a mom and pop grocery store in Upper Manhattan, and it ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And even after that closed, they persisted, and they opened another business in full entrepreneurship, a nail salon. A nail salon for over a decade. And he passed away on January 12, 2024, with his only child, with his only son by his side. Mr. Sojun Kim, Kim Sojun-nim, is survived by Assemblyman Ron Kim, his daughter-in-law, Allison Tan, and his three precious, precious granddaughters, Olive, Hazel, and Autumn. And, you know, it's remarkable that he passed away on the eve of Korean American Day, the 121st anniversary of Korean American Day, which celebrates the arrival of the very first Korean immigrants to U.S. shores in 1903. So when we think about Kim Sojun-nim, we think about service, we think about hard work, we think of risk, we think of humility. And again, his story is a classic immigrant story, one of sacrifice, one of discrimination endured, disrespect endured. And that was really foundational and passed on to his only child, Ron Kim. I believe that it is what is rooted in Ron Kim and the Assemblyman, and the drive for fair treatment, to giving voice to the voiceless, power to the powerless, and to not just ask, but to require better. That is really foundational to his only child, his 하나밖에 없는 아들. And of course, as you know, and as many of you know, his son, Sojun Kim's son, Ron Kim, made history in 2012 as the very first Korean American ever elected in New York. And I know I'm talking a lot about the Assemblyman, but I do that because Ron Kim's rise, his impact, his service is a testament to Kim Sojun-nim's legacy, to Kim Sojun-nim's pride, that Kim Sojun-nim's risk and hard work and sacrifices were not in vain. That is our experience. And so we're so appreciative that you all are here today to honor his life and to honor his legacy. I'm going to take this opportunity for a third reminder. Please silence your phones. We can hear those things now while I'm talking, but especially as the family comes up to speak and to sing, I would not want that to be disrupted by 21st century technology. So please silence your phones. I think I saw another council member here. Linda Lee. Councilmember Linda Lee is here as well. I think I saw. Okay. So now to what we all came here to hear are words from the members of family. Kim Seojun-nim's younger brother, Ron Kim's uncle or 작은 아버지, Mr. John Kim, Kim Namjun 동생.
상가 인사드립니다. 고 김서님께서는 남긴 부친이시며 저에게는 두 번째 형님이십니다. 저희는 8남매에서 3남 4호녀의 다섯 번째이시며 저는 막내이며 고인께서는 지난주 1월 12일 금요일 9시 30분경에 돌아가셨습니다. 오늘 날씨가 오래간만에 겨울의 날씨를 보여주는 있습니다. 바쁜 일정에서도 먼 길 머나 않고 오시어 참석해 주시고 저희 형님의 명복을 빌어 주시니 고인의 하늘나라에 가시는 길이 애롭지 않으시리라 굳게 믿고 있습니다. 하늘나라에 가시는 길이 부디 그곳에서 돌아가신 형수님을 지혜하시어 영원한 삶을 사시기를 주님께 기도드립니다. 또한 오늘 저희에게 따뜻한 위로의 말씀을 주신 것에 대하여 유족을 대표하여 여러분 조문객에게 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 대단히 감사합니다.
Thank you, 작은 아버지. We've also been joined by Judge Dan Court and also another City Council member, Chris Morte, all the way from Manhattan. Thank you for being here. And up next, we will hear from Seojun Kim's son himself, Ron Kim.
First, let me thank everyone for being here today. Let me thank my family, Allison, my daughters, the ones coming up here with me, Autumn, Olive, Hazel, all my staff members, the CAGNY committee members, the funeral committee members who helped organize today. It's okay. It's okay. And my friends, and Miss Lee, our pre-K teacher, so Autumn. I want to mention my friends once more for being here as well. I spent, and of course, my family members, my cousins, my uncle and my aunt for being here. So I spent about a week thinking about what I wanted to say today and what best describes my father. And there's so many stories about my dad and moments with my dad that I want to share with you. But ultimately, I landed in one word that perfectly describes how he lived and showed himself to the world. And I want you to remember him by this one word. This is one of my favorite SAT words. I haven't used it in a long time. I think I used to say it all the time when Allison and I were actually dating. And she started to call me out. There you go again. Is that the new word of the month, Ron? I think it's a great word. Are you ready for the word, girls? The word is gregarious. Gregarious. I think in Korean, June, I think it's 사규적인? 사규적인? Is that right? 20, I think in Chinese it's 해균? How do you pronounce it? 해균. Okay. And I know many of you might have expected words like honor, courage, strength, integrity. But to those who knew my dad and had been around him, went to work in Saudi Arabia with him in construction, ran into him at the Bronx Hunts Point Terminal Market when he ran a grocery store. You know, all those words, other words that I just mentioned, those traits that most men aspire to were just the baseline for my dad. For my dad, you start off as an honest man, you start off as a brave man and go from there. To me, the only word that perfectly describes my dad is gregarious. The word gregarious comes from the Latin word gregarius, relating to a herd or a flock. It's also related to congregate. Gregarious is about belonging to a group. You become gregarious because you want to belong. And that was a constant in my dad's life. Before he got sick, my dad was an avid golfer. Sharon and I talked about that a little bit. In fact, one of the things he used to bond over was going to the golf range together when I was growing up. When he got sick, I would record my swings with his clubs, with his beloved clubs, and send him the videos. He told me that I look much better at making contact, and he can't wait to return to the range with me. Before golfing, he was all about tennis. And the moment I started walking, he put a tennis racket in my hand. And I realize now that while I was fiercely into the actual sports itself, for my dad, it was about who he played tennis with and who he liked to hang out with on the golf range. He just loved living life with others, always talking, gesturing, smiling, and telling stories. He wasn't just content being alive, he wanted to live every breath. He used to do stuff that I still feel uncomfortable doing, even to this day, like going to a golf course alone to team up with a group of strangers for 18 holes. I swear, with his limited English and hearing problem, he would sometimes go by himself just to meet and socialize with strangers on the golf course. Last year, my dad went to the ER a total of 6 times due to his terminal cancer. Each time, things got a little worse, and as his main and only caregiver, I learned so much about both of us during this time period. First, caring for another human being is the hardest job, and it takes much patience, compassion, and resilience. But it is also the most rewarding. Without this year, I would not understand why living gregariously and staying engaged with life allows you to be more present. My dad showed that despite the imminent ending, by enjoying every conversation with the home care attendant, a nurse, a doctor, nursing home residents, and random strangers along the way, you can be in the moment and enjoy life. For about a year before his cancer came back and after my mom passed away, my dad was introduced to a place called social adult daycare centers. You can't walk around our neighborhood without, like mine, without noticing them everywhere. And my dad decided to join one for the Medicaid-sponsored breakfast, lunch, and endless ping pong. The thing about social daycares is that you can't have both daily home care and daycare. So the insurance company were only allowed to pick one. So when he went to the ER for the first big scare, he couldn't walk and his legs were swollen like melons. At discharge, I spent hours and hours with this insurance company to change his plan to home care. And after discharge, he came home. And the moment he felt like he could go to the bathroom by himself again, he called the insurance company on his own to return to the social daycare center. All those hours of me pleading to get more home care hours out the window with one phone call by my dad. He wanted to go back to tell his war stories, play ping pong, and shoot some pool with others. Be gregarious. During hospice at home last week, I was sitting in the living room acting all disgruntled and in some foul mood about some local political BS. And I overheard my dad on his hospice bed chatting up the social worker, the nurse, and home care attendant for 1 hour. He was in heaven. The sad and tragic part of my dad's life was that he spent most of his life making choices that went against his gregarious core. Born into extreme poverty to a large family of 8 siblings, like many Koreans at that time and immigrants today, he had a traumatic and painful childhood. He overcame a series of life-threatening illnesses as a child, and he told me about the days when he had to spit on the food at the dinner table to secure his piece of the dish. Like, imagine a bunch of kids fighting over one piece of meat, resulting in someone spitting on the food out of desperate hunger. So coming out of this poverty, he went against his gregarious character and decided to go another extreme way. Live a small and isolated life with just me, my mom, in a foreign place. He went from being surrounded by his Marine brothers and working for a multinational company to running a 24/7 grocery store with my mom in Upper Manhattan. But despite designing a life that he thought would get him out of poverty, in the end, he was worried and had regrets. On Christmas Day, I took my dad to his final hospitalization, where they had to intubate him for excessive coughing of blood. During intubation, he had heart failure, and for the 5th time last year, I said goodbye to him. 2 days later, he opened his eyes, and his first words out of intubation were, "I came out for you. I came back for you." And later on, he would expand, "I can't believe I'm leaving you with no one to look after you and no siblings." He specifically mentioned siblings a couple of times. And I realized that he feared I would also suffer an isolated life, going against the gregarious core that he probably assumed everyone wanted. I spent the next couple of days telling him that he didn't need to fight for me anymore. He can let go. He didn't need to protect me. The girls and I want him to be reunited with Harmony, and it's okay to let go, Dad. I even jokingly pulled a Dave Chappelle and told him, "Don't worry, Dad, my wife's rich." I didn't say the B word. And when that didn't work, I even told him, "Don't worry, Dad, I took on Andrew Cuomo, and I'm still standing strong. I got this." I know, Janice, you like that one. In the end, there were 2 things that kept him going. First, it was that burning desire to live gregariously 1 month, 1 week, 1 day. Second, it was a fear that I, his only child, would also suffer the same isolated life. Even when he decided to go into hospice, he couldn't let go. On day one, he asked me if I could leave $1,000 in cash by his side, budgeting another month of ordering people around to pick up his favorite and expensive food. On the second day, he told me, give me a couple of days and he can get up by himself to go to the bathroom. He told me, don't you think we should eat out one more time? In the end, my dad was able to let go because he finally felt like he belonged. After not interacting with his younger and only remaining brother for almost 20 years, he spent the last few days with him by his side. After a lifetime of not feeling like he belonged to religious institutions, not because he didn't have faith or believe in God, he was hours away from his baptism before he passed. He finally felt like he belonged and he could let go. 아빠, 아버지, we will miss your gregarious spirit. Your positive spiritual life will be forever with me, Allison, and your granddaughters. You and Amma sacrificed so much so I can live a gregarious and caring life surrounded by loved ones, friends, and my community. In closing, I want to thank the doctors and the nurses and staff at New York Presbyterian, Dr. Gabriel Jung, he's an oncologist, the visiting nurses services, VNS, this amazing group, Union Plaza Rehab, a nursing home, the Flushing Social Daycare Center, and lastly, the actual home care attendants, not the insurance company or the agency, but the home care workers who spent hours taking care of him while enthusiastically listening to his endless stories. Thank you so much.
And up next, we have a special song by a very special granddaughter, Olive.
아리랑 아리랑 안나리요 over the hills of 아리랑 voices call me from far away and I must follow I cannot stay 아리랑 아리랑 안나리요 아리랑 꽃게로 넘어간다 너를 버리고 가슴은 님은 신이도 못 가서 발변한다
Olive Kim, ladies and gentlemen. Wasn't that beautiful? Another round of applause for Olive Kim. And that was bilingual. I've never heard the bilingual version of Ida. That was impressive. And now we have some special remarks from distinguished guests. We're going to be hearing from State Senator John Liu, Congressmember, U.S. Representative Grace Meng, and Queensborough President Donovan Richards. We have been joined by a number of additional, this is actually a pretty powerful room in here, New York State Senator Leroy Comrie is in the House. Hello, Senator. Assemblyman Clyde Vannell, another of Ron Kim's colleague in the New York State Assembly, is here. Former Assembly Member Yulin Yo, I believe, is here. She also happened to be the former and first Chief of Staff to Ron Kim. And also former Assemblyman Marcos Crespo is also in the House to the Assemblyman's emphasis on gregarious, a lot of friends in the room. And so with that, Senator John Liu. John Liu is a mentor, a trailblazer, for over 20 years, took on Ron Kim over 20 years ago, and it is on his coattails that many of us have moved.
Ron, Allison, Olive, Hazel, Autumn, the entire family of Kim Sojun. I think, I think Ron put us on the right path here. Set the tone for today's remembrance of a terrific human being who has gone home. And although we wish we had more time with him, I think there's much cause to celebrate the life of Kim Sojun. A life that, as you already know, was not easy from birth. And all throughout his life, he could have chosen the easy path. But instead, he always chose what was right for his family, and in the end, went through many more hardships. A veteran of Vietnam War, a small business owner for a couple of stints, and in these latest years, the biggest booster to Ron, and then more importantly, to Olive, Hazel, and Autumn. This was a man who, as Ron said, was gregarious, and if you knew him, he always had that smile. He always had that smile. Sometimes it was a serious smile, sometimes it was a goofy smile, but it was always a smile. And when he was with Kim Sun-hee, they were a power couple without really doing anything. And of course, Mrs. Kim took ill and left us not so long ago. And that was really rough for Mr. Kim. No question about it. It took a toll on him. And then he himself took ill and fought cancer. It was a long fight. It was a long fight. And, the doctors gave Ron grave news. Grave news. 6 times. 5 times, Kim Sojun said, "No way, I'm not ready. I'm going to spend more time with Ron and Allison and my granddaughters." And the 6th time, by then you didn't believe anything the doctor said because it had been 5 times before. The 6th time he went into hospice care, and we're going to have a party after the baptism last Saturday. But as fate would have it, this time on Friday night, Kim Sojun left us. And Ron, I think will have us all remember. Don't wait. You tell your loved ones while you have the chance. And he did. Ron did. And everybody who could, and who could bear the endless conversations with Kim Sojun did. But today we're here to celebrate his life, and in celebrating Kim Sojun's life, you can't do it without, as Sharon mentioned already, you can't do it without talking about Ron, his only child, his son, his pride and joy, the community's pride and joy. Somebody who grew up here, right here in Flushing, went through school, went on to college, broke the stereotypes by becoming an all-star football player at college. Not that many Asian American football players. Ron's pretty tough. I mean, there was a mugger in Flushing, and Ron single-handedly tackled the guy to the ground and held him while the police came. This is coming from the veteran. That's the same kind of spirit and resiliency that comes along from Dad. Ron, is not the most gregarious person. He's a little bit reserved, unless you give him enough soju. Then, I'm sure Dad tried that many times. But this is, I think Ron carries on in his legacy. It's been a rough few years for Ron and his family. First, they lost an uncle, then his mom not too long ago. Most of us still remember her funeral. And then today, Ron's dad's homegoing. So it's been rough. But through it all, Assemblyman Kim has not shirked his duties one bit. Held his head up high, looked after Allison. Allison looked after Ron also. And of course, never leaving his daughters, giving them everything that they want. And so Kim Sojun he's looking down on us right now, very happy, watching his legacy continue. Ron continuing to do great work for his family, for our extended family here, everyone here, for the community and the state that he swore to uphold his duties for. And so I am so gratified to see everybody here. Our brother Ron does need us, even though he won't admit it. But he does need us, and it's great that you're all here for Ron, for Allison, for the girls, and to say goodbye to our friend Kim Sojun. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Liu. Up next, we will ask another trailblazer, the Honorable Grace May, to come say a few words.
Thank you to our trailblazer in our Korean American and Queens community, former Borough President Sharon Lee. To Ron and Allison, the girls, to the Kim family, I know that hearts are very heavy today as we gather here to say farewell to Mr. Kim, to Ron's dad. But hearing about Mr. Kim, remembering years of Mr. Kim being at so many community events and seeing how proud Mr. Kim was of Ron, Allison, and especially the 3 granddaughters gives our community so much joy and helps us remember so many of the lessons and legacy that Mr. Kim leaves, especially Ron's comments about how gregarious he was. I know we are sad and heartbroken today, but our community is better off, and we are fortunate because of the life and the sacrifices that were made by Mr. Kim and his family. I know that the past few years have been really difficult for Ron and the family. Caretaking and caregiving, being the main caregiver of someone in your family, much less your own dad and your own mom, is really difficult. It can be frustrating at times. You sacrifice a lot of your own time with your own family and work and personal life. But we can even see from afar how much Ron gave to taking care of his parents and most recently his dad, Ron, you truly did right by him. And you helped us all by us witnessing your actions, love, and sacrifices. You help us all to be better children and better caretakers of our own family and community. So I know we are sad today, but especially for Olive and Hazel and Autumn, Grandpa is in a more comfortable place. He is in a more peaceful place. He is happy, even though he cannot see you or be with you, but he can hear you when you are singing, when you are dancing, when you do well in school, when you're with your friends and you tell stories about him and how great he was to you. You can hold on to those memories forever. And he is in a happy and comfortable, he is more comfortable right now, and his love for you will be with you forever. And thank you for how much you loved him.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And up next, we have the Honorable Donovan Richards, Borough President of the Borough of Queens. You know, we have a small club, just Melinda Katz, Sharon Lee, and of course now, the great Donovan Richards.
Thank you, Sharon. And Sharon left some big hills for me to follow in pursuit of being the borough president. I want to thank her for all of the work that she's done on leaving our borough better than we certainly have found it. And to Ron, to Allison, to all you beautiful girls. Now, I sort of see where you get your good looks from now. Father's a good-looking man. But indeed, a mighty tree has fallen before us today. You know, hearing some of the stories and just looking at the pictures there, as Sharon alluded to, your father was the embodiment of what the American dream is all about. And I always often allude to the fact that my father himself became a United States citizen in 2020. The first election he can vote in was mine. And I think he voted for Ron Kim now, for borough president, by the way. But truly, when you think about that American story, that Queen story in the most diverse county in the world, you know, you settled here, he settled here, business owner, family man, served our country. Wow. And then sacrificed so much along the journey. You know, your dad is certainly reunited with his bride, but to also see his son become a New York State Assembly member, I knew that had to be, I mean, talk about poetic justice, talk about sacrifice for him to see you ascend to that position, to not only just ascend, but to truly be a fighter for not just your district, but to be a voice for the entire state. I know he was so proud of you. And while he is gone, certainly in the physical, his spirit, you see, because we all have to go. We all have a dash. Taxes and death are the only things that are promised to us. But at the end of the day, it's how did we leave this place better than we found it while we were here. So his supreme sacrifice, serving our country, and pouring into you, that legacy will forever live on. So I want you to know that although you are all in mourning today, and you're his only son, only child, that Queens is a big family, and we have a big family. And I want you to know that we are all here for you in the event, in times of need. If you just need somebody to talk to, you know, our phone is on. This borough will be here for you. thank you for allowing me to just share a few words, but I am here for you if you need anything, brother. May God bless you, and God bless the memory and legacy of Kim So-jung. Thank you.
Thank you, Borough President Richards. We will now hear from some leaders in the community and some friends. I just want to again give a shout out to the distinguished public servants who joined us today. You've heard from some of them: State Senator Liu, New York State Senator Leroy Comrie, New York State Assembly Member Ed Braunstein, New York State Assembly Member Clyde Vanell, former Assembly Members Marco Crespo and Dan Court and Yulin Yo, New York City Council Members Sandra Ung, Julie Wan, Linda Lee, Chris Marte, Justice Karen Lynn of the Queens Supreme Court, Judge Wendy Lee of the Queens Civil Court, and of course, Congresswoman Grace Meng. So up next, we will hear from the president of the Korean American Association of Greater New York, also known as CAGNY, President Kwang-Soo Kim.
We are gathered here today to honor the memory of Mr. Sejun Kim, who passed away at the age of 78. The late Mr. Sejun Kim exemplified the life and aspiration of the Korean immigration community. Lifelong hard work, entrepreneurship, supporting his family, education of children. Despite he faced many difficulties, he has lived a successful life. Most importantly, he encouraged his only son to serve the community and the United States and work with others to create a better future. The death of Sejun Kim makes me reflect on the purpose of our life and work, whether it benefits others. I'm humbled and honest in the face of death. May he rest in peace, and may God's comfort and peace be with his family.
Thank you, President Kim. Up next, we have Mr. Young-hwan Kim. He is the chair of the Korean Cuisine Globalization Committee. And Mr. Kim, you know, he can be quiet, but he's one of the fuels, or he helps fuel the rise of Korean Americans, specifically second-generation Korean Americans, in political life here in New York. Mr. Kim.
오늘 우리는 론김 가족과 슬픔을 함께 나누기 위해 이 자리에 모였습니다. 먼저 크리스찬인 저로서 하나님의 크신 위로가 란김의 또 그의 가족을 위해 함께 하시기를 간절한 마음으로 기원합니다. 적지 않은 기간 동안을 한인 사회를 대표하는 젊은 정치인이었던 런김과 함께하여 크고 작은 일들, 어렵고 힘든 일들을 함께 겪었지만 오늘의 슬픔은 위로의 말 이외에 드릴 것이 없기에 더욱 안타깝기만 합니다. 그러나 어엿한 중견 정치인으로 발돋움한 뉴욕주 하원 의원 론김을 보면서 그의 성장에 가슴 벅차했을 그의 아버지의 마음을 이 시간 가늠해 봅니다. 45년생이셨던 고인과는 저와 같은 시대를 살아왔습니다. 어려서는 배고픔을 알았고 내 땅, 내 가족을 등지고 태평양을 건너와서 하루 종일 노동으로 저린 어깨와 말 다르고 물 다른 곳에서 당하는 멸시와 차별을 신음소리 한번 크게 내지 못하고 가장으로서, 아버지로서, 남편으로서 이를 악물고 견디며 미국의 한 시민으로 자라가는 자녀를 보며 무던히도 견디셨으리라 믿습니다. 그 어린 자녀는 이제 자라나서 어엿한 어른이 되었고 그의 아버지의 가르침대로 가정을 이루고 그 또한 아버지가 되었습니다. 또한 아들 론킴은 정치의 길에 입문하여 지금은 7번째의 하원 의원 도전을 앞두고 있습니다. 도전하고 성장해가는 론김의 모습 속에서 우리는 죽었지만 살았고 없어지지만 영원히 있는 그의 아버지의 미소와 따뜻한 마음 그리고 올곧은 가르침을 확인합니다. 우리는 그분의 인생을 존경하며 그분의 가르침으로 도전하고 성장하여 뉴욕의 칠선을 넘어서 워싱턴까지 나아가는 한인 정치인 론김을 지지하고 그와 함께 할 것입니다. 이것이 바로 고인의 바레움이기도 할 것입니다. 오늘 사랑하는 아버지를 보내며 슬픔에 잠겨있을 론킴이 그의 아버지의 가르침을 기억하고 언제나처럼 그 슬픔과 아픔을 딛고 일어나 올바른 아들, 올바른 남편으로서, 올바른 아버지로서, 그리고 올바른 정치인으로서 성장할 것을 우리는 믿고 기대하며 추모사를 가름합니다.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kim, for those words and also all that you do to uplift the second generation. Up next, we have Ms. Minsun Kim, President of the Museum of Korean American Heritage.
First, I express my deepest condolence to the bereaved family from the bottom of my heart. From now on, I will speak in Korean because Mr. Sejun Kim is with us at this moment. I want to share my message with him. 저는 김서준 선생님을 생전에 뵌 적이 없습니다만은 그분이 얼마나 반듯한 인품을 가지신 분이시고 또 얼마나 치열하게 세상을 살아오신 분이라는 것을 그분의 아들 랑킴 의원을 통해 충분히 짐작할 수 있습니다. 제가 지난해 우연히 랑킴 의원님 가족과 함께 여행을 할 기회가 있었습니다. 제가 제 마음속에 각인된 란 의원은 강하고 당차고 소신 있는 책임 있는 리더십을 가진 사람으로 생각되었었습니다. 그런데 여행 기간 동안 저는 란킴 의원의 다른 면모를 보았습니다. 따뜻하고 또 가족을 아주 아끼고 사랑하며 또 타인을 배려할 수 있는 그런 따뜻한 마음을 가진 아주 훌륭한 가정교육을 받은 분이구나 느꼈습니다. 그 랑킴 의원을 이렇게 훌륭하게 키워내신 분이 바로 여기 누워 계신 우리 김서진 선생님이시고 또 그분의 헌신으로 랑킴 의원님께서 우리 한인 사회의 대들보일 뿐만 아니라 지역 사회의 큰 제목으로 우뚝 성장해 계십니다. 이렇게 자신의 이름이 아닌 사랑하는 아들을 훌륭하게 키움으로써 우리 사회에 공헌을 하신 분을 저는 이런 분의 인생이 바로 위대한 평범이라고 생각합니다. 이러한 김서준 선생님처럼 위대한 평범한 인생을 사신 1세들이 계셨기에 우리 코리안들이 지금 미국 내 가장 성공한 소수의 엘리트 그룹으로 우뚝 설 수 있게 된 것입니다. 자, 이제 아프지만 아름다운 이별을 해야 될 순간입니다. 사랑하는 아버님을 보내신 우리 랑킴 의원님, 또 가족분들, 우리 여기 계신 모든 여러분들께서 따뜻한 위로로 감싸주시고 또 큰 힘을 모아주시길 바라며 또 아름다운 생을 마감하시고 힘들지만 본인은 우리 한인 사회에 공헌을 하신 김서준 선생님께서 편안하게 영면하실 수 있도록 그리고 그분의 인생을 우리가 기리며 감사하는 마음을 가질 수 있도록 우리 모두 기도해 주시기를 바랍니다. 끝으로 제가 김서준 선생님께 마지막으로 드릴 말이 있습니다. 백석 선생님이 하신 시에 이런 구절이 있죠. 하나님께서는 특히 사랑하는 사람을 병들고 가난하고 아프고 고독하게 그러나 높은 곳에 고이하게 두신다고 했습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. Up next, another community leader, Mr. Peter Tu. He is the senior advisor for the Flushing Chinese Business Association. I think everyone in the room knows Peter Tu. He's done so much to uplift Asian Americans in political life here in New York. Mr. Peter Tu.
In my age, I only can call Mr. Kim is Brother Kim. I know Brother Kim, husband and wife, and Addison, parent. In the meantime, when they're waiting, that's a long time ago. And in my mind, I always know Ron Kim's father always smile. I don't know why, Ron Kim and Addison parent, in my memorize, they always smile. I mean, both of you must be do so well that both of your parents so proud of you. And now, Flushing Chinese Business Association as a worker for community more than 30 years without personal agenda. I have to say, Brother Kim, you got a proud of your son. Assemblyman Ron Kim, wow, since the first year he began to run until today. I follow him all the time, and he working hard to fight for community, to fight for justice for the Asian Americans. So even senior citizen, whole entire city, I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him. Even sometimes I don't agree with him, but I try my best to understand. So I will take this opportunity to say, Brother Kim, special thanks for your contribution to the community, to the people, as your lifetime, because every single thing, Ron Kim, Allison, 3 of your grandchildren in the future, that representative Asian American, we got demonstration this is also our country. We are American. I never want to mention I'm Asian. I love this country, and I'm proud of what the Brother Kim to let his own son to contribute, to feedback our community as he can. So I think he is stay longer with both of you. Your mother need him go there. They got to join the life in the heaven in the future. He always stay, he pay a lot of time to stay with you. That's good enough. Let he go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tu. Up next, we have the Honorable Yulin Yo, former New York State Assembly member in Manhattan, but also before that, she was the Assemblyman's first Chief of Staff, Yulin Yo.
People didn't mention probably that Sharon actually was Ron's campaign manager, one of the first actually. So, you know, I actually was very honored in being able to spend a little time at the end with Ron's dad. And, you know, Ron had told me in messages, you know, a lot of the things that he had just gone through, the test that he'd just done, and when I went to the room, he still said my name so loudly. He was so jovial, so gregarious. And, you know, he gave me a fist bump, gave me some finger hearts. He was so happy to see, you know, each person that came to see him. And I think that, you know, demonstrated a lot of his personality and his strength. Because for other people, he was always willing to show not his pain, but his joy. And I still remember that the first time I met Ron's dad was actually in a car. He was driving Ron around everywhere, all the time. He was always driving, doing something, helping with something, always adding a little extra. His mom and his dad were the biggest supporters. It didn't matter what, whether it was moving, whether it was the kids, whether it was trying to make sure that Ron won. And I think that, you know, he was somebody who made me really jealous that I wasn't an only child. Ron's dad and Ron's mom made Ron hit their entire world. And when we all think about Ron as being an ultimate girl dad, Ron's dad was an ultimate granddad. I still remember when Olive was first born. And I still remember that, you know, he was so proud to have a little girl, grandchild. He was so excited. He wanted to take her everywhere. And I still remember she was sitting on my desk.
She was barely sitting at the time, but she was sitting on my desk, and he was like, "Oh, do you see how strong she is? She's sitting up." And then I still remember when Young, who was my deputy at the time for Ron, every time he came near her, she would be like, "No, I don't like this guy." But she was like so happy to see me, and he was just like, "Good, no boyfriend." He was always full of jokes. Every single time that we were hanging out, it was always, and we hung out a lot because we were always in Ron's car. We were always, making sure that he had his things or whatever, and we got to spend a lot of time together. And every single time he had something really amazing to say about Ron, about the kids, about his stories that Ron knows that he tells. And one of the things that he it will never leave me, because obviously every time I see Ron, I think of it. But I asked him, because this was after the election, I was asking him, I was like, "Are you proud? Aren't you really, really proud?" And he was like, "I am proud of everything my son does. I am proud of every single thing my son does." And I was like, my parents have never said anything like that, because Asian parents don't say those things. But Ron's dad, Ron's mom, never once flinched to express how much they loved their son, how much they love his wife, how much they love their grandkids. In Asian communities, we're very stoic about our feelings. But Ron's parents were very different. They expressed their love for everyone. They expressed their love for their kid. They expressed their love for me, for everyone who loved him, and for all of the community members that they came across. They never flinched. And so, I know that even now, they are just 100%, every sacrifice, every moment that they made on earth, they know that Ron is loved, and he knows that he's loved, and his family knows that they're loved. And that was all they wanted to leave behind. So, Mr. Kim, thank you for always treating me like family. You are so loved.
Thank you, Assemblymember Yo. We have one final speaker. I know we're running a little bit over time, but we appreciate everyone's grace, because time is a luxury. And before I bring up the last speaker, I know that we are also joined by Justice Phil Hom, also of the Queen's Supreme Court, who happened to be Ron and was then Councilman John Liu's chief of staff, and at the time, my and Ron's boss. Justice Hom, very good to see you. Final speaker is someone who needs no introduction, the Honorable Jumani Williams. He is the New York City Public Advocate. Ever since he walked in the room, I've had literally 5 people come up to me, "Jumani Williams is here. Jumani Williams is here. Aren't you going to have him speak?" I was like, you know what? I know the advocate. He would not want to interrupt the flow of the speakers who preceded him, specifically the community leaders. So thank you for your patience. Mr. Advocate, Jumani Williams.
Peace and blessings, love and light, everyone. I apologize to Mr. Kim and Teron. I don't know Korean, so I'm gonna have to do everything in English if that's okay. I know it's always tough to be up here because I know what Ron and family want is their loved one back and their dad back, and we're not able to provide that. So we try our best to just talk about the life in hopes that helps ease some of the pain. And I was listening to Yulene speaking. Caribbean parents sound a lot like Asian parents. They don't really give too much effusive proudness, and so I was happy to hear that mold was broken. My family came from the immigrant experience just like you, surprised it wasn't Korea. It was a small island of Grenada, but to have our parents, our fathers, come from other countries and their sons are able to be elected officials, that's probably pretty amazing. And I remember my dad, he, at the end there, he lived somewhere else, but he came up for my first election. He couldn't really hand out lit, but he would just hold my lit like this as people walked in. And I could see the pride in his voice, in his face. I can only imagine how proud your dad was of you. I didn't get to meet him, but I know you. And I gotta say, looking at the picture and hearing what people speak of, he just looked like somebody you want to hang out with and have in the room, and add some joy and add some fun to the room. And I would say, like, toward the end, my dad wasn't doing so well. It is amazingly humble to do for your father what they likely did for you when you were a baby. It's an interesting experience, humbling experience. I'm proud that I was able to do some of that for my dad. I can only imagine that you are proud that you were able to do some of that for your dad, what he did for you. And I think, as I said to you, having gone through that, I can't say what people say, that it gets easier, but you do learn to live in the new reality and everything your dad put inside you. You get to carry that, and he gets to remain with you, even if it doesn't, quote unquote, get better. And so I hope that's the same for you. I know it will be. And I just, listening to who he was, explains so much of who you are, and able to carry that. So congratulations on that. And I'm sure that's the one thing he wanted. And so I have a letter that I'd just like to read very quickly to the family of Mr. Soo-Jun Kim. I'd like to offer you my prayers for peace and comfort as you mourn the loss of Mr. Soo-Jun Kim. I know from experience the pain of losing someone dear, a family member, is devastating. That leaves a permanent void. Please accept my heartfelt empathy and support. This is a great loss as well for the friends and families whose lives he touched and the community in which he lived. Our Shade City feels this loss with you and stands in support with you in grief. He was a neighbor, a friend, and a source of support to all who had the privilege of being in his life. Know that his impact will long continue to be felt by those who knew him best. My hope is that in the coming weeks and months, you take time to celebrate Mr. Kim's life. Hopefully, these loving memories will provide the comfort you need during this trying time. I pray you are granted strength in this period of mourning. Sincerely, Jemani Williams, Public Advocate, City of New York. Continue to pray for you, your wife, and your kids, and just from all intents and purposes, a life well lived. Peace and blessings. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Advocate. So, as you can see in your program, we have a music selection, and then we'll have the viewing. I understand that we are very behind schedule, so I'm going to do my best to keep this along. So we'll have a musical selection, and then some final announcements, and then we'll have a final farewell for Mr. Kim. We have members of the New York Young Arts Foundation who will sing Wonderful Peace. We've got Kunsu Kim, Hee-jae Kim, and Seo Dae-won-nim.
Sweeter than song.
much the New York Young Arts Foundation. And so, as mentioned, we will begin the viewing momentarily. Right before we do that, I want to acknowledge the funeral committee who helped put this together, and also the lunch and refreshments after. The committee members are Lee Gang-won, Peter Tu, Kim Yong-chul, Kim Young-hwan, Yoon Jo, Lee Hui-soo, Tony Lee, Cho Won-hun, Chae Won-chul, Bae Kwang-soo, Cho Dong-hyun, Park Yun-yong, James Jung, Kim Jong-ho-nim. Thank you so much for all that you did for today's ceremony. So we will now begin this viewing. At the conclusion of the viewing, we're going to ask people to sit back down for a farewell salute conducted by the Korean Vietnam War Veterans Association of Greater New York. Mr. Kim's brothers in arms will do a farewell salute, And then after the ceremony, we invite everybody to enjoy some lunch and refreshments provided at Hamjibak, owned by Mr. Young-hwan Kim, 40-11, 149th Place, following the conclusion of the farewell salute. As mentioned, that there is a cremation ceremony, but that will only be for immediate family. So the family would like to thank everyone for coming and to enjoy the lunch provided by Hamjibak. And so with that, for the viewing, we're going to ask folks to line up on your right-hand side, and we're going to ask folks to come up and say say farewell 5 by 5, groups of 5. Only if you're comfortable, you're not required to, but if you would like to, please line up next to Chiyun over there to say farewell. And again, afterward, you'll be seated again for the farewell salute by our veterans. Thank you.
잘 먹네 형. 형님 보고 고3이라 식사 먹고. 이 식대가 너무 안 먹었다.
Just a quick announcement, if you have blocked the parking lot with your car, please move your car. Again, if you're double parked or if you're blocking the parking lot, please move your car. Thank you.
Hello. 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 Hello.
video chats next time we see the girls, all right?
Sharon, stay here. Come. Yes.
Hi, Rose, you sit?
Taking advice, so taking your example and just being constantly pregnant at this point.
Ladies and gentlemen, so that now concludes the viewing. And as mentioned, we will now proceed with the farewell salute. We're going to ask everyone to please find your seats again. And I'm going to ask Mr. James Chung to come up, as well as the Korean-Vietnam War Veterans Association of Greater New York.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I, James Chung, the chairman of Korean-Vietnam War Veterans Association of New York, I'd like to announce some history of Vietnam War and who is our honorable colleague, Mr. Sejun Kim. Korean President Park and President Johnson, United States, had treated that Korean troops participating in the Vietnam War 1965. After that, we annually 50,000 Korean soldiers had been stationed there. Total 325,000 Korean troops had accomplished combat for 7 years until 1973. We never been defeated. In total 59,000 combats for the 7 years. Even very dangerous environmental jungle combat condition. For instance, even with daytime, we forward about 100 feet in the jungle, there is dark, like night time. Think about it that, can you imagine that the situation we accomplished the jungle combat? Ladies and gentlemen, freedom is not free. If we want peace, we must provide combat. That is the best way we could do. We had fought for never been seen, never been known Vietnamese freedom, peace, and democratic. Nevertheless, he was one of us. He belongs to Blue Dragon Division in the Marine, was very brave and never been defeated in Vietnam combat history. He was honored to present at the Vietnam War with us. We are very sorry because we couldn't share more time with him that much also. We Vietnam War veterans want to say farewell, goodbye, colleague Mr. Sejun Kim. Old soldiers never die, just faded away. Goodbye again, Sejun Kim, our colleague. Korean American Vietnam veterans, come up, please. 제복을 안 입은 사람은 뒤로 가세요. 뒤쪽 출발. 두 줄로 서세요. 제복을 안 입은 사람 뒤로 가시고. 일동 차렷! 고인이 된 우리 전우님 김서준 우리 전우를 앞에 차렷 경례! 바로 뒤로 돌아가시기 바랍니다.
반대로 반. 키 큰 사람.
So everybody go outside. So anyone want to go to crematory, turn on the headlight, hide the light, the wait for our steps, attach a funeral sticker. Please go outside. 저거 깃발 바깥에서 하면 어때? 여기 갖고 나와야 돼.
김원세장 간다 하더라고요. 그렇죠. 그렇죠. 이게 가게 하는 와이프가 매일 공부를
말씀드렸어요.
네네.